it's all over in New York. If you stayed up for this one, you saw a wild one at the Garden in Madison Square Garden. It's over. Michigan loses by a bucket in a really entertaining game, but a game that if you're a Michigan fan, you were really excited. You were then flabbergasted, and you may have even turned off the game. That's how frustrating it was watching Michigan in the middle portion of this game. But the Wolverines fought back, got in position to win the game, and then had an opportunity to win the game and fell short 89-87. Welcome in to the Maize and Blue Reviews Michigan basketball post-game live show. We're here after every Michigan basketball game. And, you know, this would have been a great game if Michigan would have won this one. You'd have talked about, man, this is what college basketball is all about. What a gutsy performance by Michigan, left for dead, getting after they were way up, then they were way down, able to come back when nobody thought that they had it in them. And then fittingly, was it a fitting end with Michigan with under 4 seconds to go, where Danny Wolf, who, you know, he was at times incredible in this game, threw after they drew their final play up, not a bad idea having the ball in Wolf's hands, but he makes a bad pass to Roddy Gale, who's cutting to the hoop, and it doesn't go down as a turnover. Turnovers were a huge part of this game. It wasn't a turnover because Gale was able to get the ball that went off of his shin, and then he had a look about the free throw line to tie the game up as time expired. But of course, he missed that one. And that is it. Woo! What do you take out of this one if you're a Michigan fan and watching how Dusty May's team performed on this big stage? And Michigan looked so good at the start of this game, but I'll say they looked great. But then as great as they looked at the start, then they looked that bad, and then terrible. They got rattled in this game. They were shook, and it wasn't one guy. The entire team was glazed over, and they were shook. And I think if they all held out their hands, they were shaking. Everyone disappeared at once, and then they all came back. They started making plays, and then they ran some sweet. They ran the Golden Wolf pick and roll to perfection, and they knocked down some shots. Yeah, sure. You could talk about having some looks, Burnett and Wolf, with some threes that, you know, if they went down also late. Trey Donaldson, he wants to be, and I think that it would be best for this team if they're going to be their best version of themselves, if he was the lockdown point guard that could distribute the ball and score. But he, talking about Donaldson, in under a minute to go, drove the lane and just left it, and then stepped on the baseline, and then left his feet where he didn't know he was going to throw the ball. That wasn't any good. And then Wolf also had a turnover in that stretch with under a minute to go. That was really bad. And in the end, Michigan with 19 turnovers, and when they only had 5 in the first half, this was a complete flip of the way that they had been playing this year. They'd turned the ball over a bunch in almost every game, except not the last one, but against Xavier and Wisconsin. They looked like they had finally started to value the ball more, and they weren't as careless, and they weren't as sloppy. And one thing with this team, boy, they all play, it's contagious. When one guy is just throwing a ball to the other team or leaving his feet or throwing a hook pass or just, doing something silly, the other guys start doing the same thing, but then they start locking it down and they seem connected that way. I don't know if it's a good thing if they start playing better. And then, but tonight when they all were just, making the most preposterous turnovers. I mean, it was really hard to watch. I don't know if I've ever seen a team like that where you're watching it. You've seen last year we saw really bad basketball and it was unacceptable the way the team that they didn't accept any kind of challenge to guard their opposite number, and so that was sickening. But this team they've got a lot of promise, but the turnovers make them look so bad. And it's not, you say you got to correct, what's everybody said, clean it up. Well, yeah, clean it up. It's not like, I think that when you play run and gun and get the possessions up and pass the ball, don't hold it. It's like it's going too fast for them. I think that's one part, but then they slow it down and then they're making, ridiculous passes when they slow it down. So I don't know what Dusty May says to him, except I listened to him on Monday when he said, yeah, sometimes we feel like we don't want to just overdo it where we're saying, hey, you got to, every little, play. So you got to have some freedom there. But these guys have to know that they have to value the basketball and unforced turnovers. Those are going to cost you games. And this is a team that's got to shoot. They got to do better at the free throw line. Good teams don't turn the ball over at the rate that Michigan does, and good teams shoot free throws. They got away with it at Wisconsin when they missed the front end of 3 one-on-one opportunities late in that game. You'd have told me that was what was going to happen in Madison. I'd say they probably would have lost it. They won it. And then tonight, they were missing key free throws, but here was Wolf on one, tipping it up for a bucket. Here was the other one. Wolf, I think, was able to, maybe it was Burnett that got a rebound off a missed free throw. So they were able to actually make up for bad free throw shooting tonight. But those things catch up with you. Bad free throw shooting, especially in key spots. Obviously, you can't rely on rebounding that. And then the turnovers, I don't know what else you want, bugaboo for this team. And at this point, with all the new faces and everything, that was the reason or excuse early on. Although, they'll gel, they'll get it together, but they've played enough games now where you watch them and it just continues on. Talking about the turnovers. People are up late. This was a wild game to watch and try to figure out everything that was going on. It was one of those games. Are you encouraged? No, but not with a loss. If you're going to be encouraged, it's about this team, if you were a boxer, getting completely knocked out, laying on the mat, the referee comes over and your eyes have rolled back into your head, and then somehow you just spring up. Like the Undertaker in that, so many times you see the meme or whatever, where he's back. That was Michigan. And to put themselves in position. So it's however you feel about it. They were great. They were terrible, but then, they fought back, which is good, but you can't play like that. It had the intensity of, it's easy to say an NCAA tournament game, but that's how it felt to me watching it. It felt like a tournament game. But then it was one of those games where one of these things was such a big turnaround that if you were not a Michigan or an Arkansas fan, you would sit back like Dan Shulman and Jay Billis. They were just there. They were just like, it's an incredible night here at the Jimmy V Classic. Boy, these teams are, and they were enjoying it. But you're not, you're having a hard time enjoying that one if you're a Michigan fan, probably an Arkansas fan too. A lot of people turning it off and going to bed and then waking up saying, oh, wow, Michigan came all the way back. Not only did they come all the way back, they had golden opportunities to win this game. Again, Donaldson stepping on the baseline. I said it was Wolf turning the ball over. No, they got the ball to Golden right in the middle of the paint. And he turned around for his right-hand hook, and he got point blocked right there. I mean, that was good execution. They had him right there, and he just got stuffed right in the middle. And I hadn't seen that from him this year. So correct my earlier point about Wolf turning it over. All of a sudden, all these different things. I know the coach has to keep his cool and relay things to his players, and the players also have to do that once in a while. When you're broadcasting, you say something that is wrong, and then you go back and you try to correct it. So that's that. I took about pages of notes in this game. I haven't used any of them yet. And let's look through at some of the things. This was the 10th game of the year for Michigan, and they vaulted into the top 25 at number 14. Wow, here comes Michigan at not only a top 25 team, but number 14 with their first appearance in the top 25. How about that? Taking on old John Calipari, the cheater, at Madison Square Garden, and it doesn't get any better than that if you're a college basketball fan. And then Michigan, they're just torching the nets. The Will Cheddar knocking down back-to-back threes. He had a heat check, which was even okay to the air ball, but everybody was knocking him down. Danny Wolf was doing everything. He was, people say, doing Danny Wolf things. He looked awesome. They all did. Nobody was missing. They look great. They're up 15. But then, Dusty went to a lineup where he had Pippen was in there at one point, Reuben Jones. And that's when Arkansas made a little push at the end of the half. I think that if they go back, they're going to have to look at their rotation and look at the players that they had on the floor there, because that wasn't good. But in the end, Michigan, even though Arkansas had got it down to 1, Michigan hit a 3 late, and they were up by 4 at the half, and you're thinking, all right. But then Arkansas came out and looked like a juggernaut to start the second half. They went on the 7-0 run, and they grabbed the lead, and then DeJuan Wagner or whatever they call him now, Wagner and Flan, the 2 5-stars, these guys, all of a sudden, they look like they could be playing for the New York Knicks. They're hitting every shot. Their big men are throwing down dunks, and they look like they're going to blow Michigan out. And in fact, where you probably thought, if you're somebody that had to get up early, that you turned it off with 9 minutes to go because Michigan was down 18. And they were turning the ball. And and I would say that you couldn't even blame anybody if they did that. There were some passes that there's going to be some turnover. Sometimes you think you're going to have somebody's cutting and you throw it and they back cut or something. Oh, man. But these were throwing them into like the 4th row. These were just it was a meltdown, and it was everyone, and it was a hot potato, and it was really hard to watch there. But then a funny thing happened. You're sitting there just still watching it. Michigan, they get it down to 10 with 8 minutes to go, and then they get it down to 8 with 7 minutes to go. Then there was 6 with 6 minutes to get 4 with 4, and you're like, wait a second. And that's when they had a couple guys had opportunities at threes. Burnett had one, and I think Wolf had one, and they had good looks, and you're thinking, oh man, they could make it a 1-possession game, but they still Still were down there. They did make it a one-possession game late. And there they were. And a lot of things in college basketball, I liked what Jay Billis was talking about. They're not going to change it this year with challenges, and they get down to these under 2-minute reviews, and you can go out and do the dishes, take the laundry out. You don't have to pause it. You get back up. I was behind in the game because I was rewinding it and everything, and then I'm also on the Maize and Blue Reviews Den, seeing what everybody's saying about it. And I was like 5 minutes behind, but I really wasn't, because these things were taking like 10 minutes. And finally I was like, wow, look at how far behind I am. But that's an aside. Those are some of my thoughts. Let's look at some of the feedback before we run down the numbers. Jake said this one hurt. Well, it did. They were 8-1. So I didn't think that they were going to run through this gauntlet that they had in the non-conference slate. But when you win when you beat Xavier, and then you're beating Wisconsin on the road, and you're taking care of Iowa, you're thinking, okay, bring on Arkansas. Bring on Oklahoma. And then you're like, well, better watch what you ask for. The always entertaining MGO Blue 1234 calls this one a painful loss that is going to be difficult to sit with for a week. Good point, MGB, because Michigan does have a week off. Too risky of a play when the game is on the line. That had to be a perfect pass on the cut. Yeah, I didn't like that. I didn't like that one. I don't mind going for, you get a clean look at a three. And they had 3.7 seconds. So there's 100 plays that you could run. They probably couldn't go to the 7-foot screen and roll. That probably would take too much time. But having Gale cut to the basket, and so you're going for two because maybe you think that they're going to be playing for the three. But Wolf, who had a career high in assists, they said Shulman on the game that his career high was 5, and he had like 8 or 9 at that point. So, he's feeling it, delivering the ball. Dusty drew that one up. And, you'd like to be able to get a shot, and not the one that he had to rebound off of his shin and have a desperation heave there at the end. So, no, too risky. Didn't like it. You got to, I know you say Wolf is their best passer. I don't mind having him with the ball in his hands, but that should have been a turnover, which is kind of a microcosm of Michigan's season and the problems that go along with it. BK's talking turnovers. Dusty waiting until 3 seconds left, having 2 timeouts left is very bad. Well, I don't know. I think what Dusty did there, now they lose, so you've got a point. So I'm not telling you that you're wrong. What I am telling you is there's a lot of time where you're going up there and you trust your players, and I think that's what Dusty was doing. He let him get up there because they were running something, but then he didn't like it, so he called a timeout. So I'm not going to kill him on that. If I'm going to kill him on something, I'm going to kill him on this team being so sloppy in the middle of the game, where it's just way too much. You can't, even though this team is off to a good start, they look like they could be an NCAA tournament team. The turnovers, it's like you know that you have a hole in your engine, and it might drive for you're going to just blow your engine at some point. It's not going to be able to get you to the finish line. You got you just know that the way they turn the ball over. I don't have any great advice on how he can correct that. These guys, it's all of them. That's all their ball handlers. Their guards, their 2 best players are Golden and Wolf. The pick and roll is awesome. These guards got to step up and they've got to tighten it up when it comes down, and they have to value the ball. And I know everybody's turning it over, but the main guys, I would say that Donaldson and Gale, these guys got to be much better. When you talk about leadership, sure, it's things that you're saying, but it's the guy with the ball that is handling it the most. And it would be nice if Wolf, who might be your best player, could cut down on some of those too. All of them have to cut down on them. But yeah, I can sit here all night talking about turnovers. May has to forget about playing fast. These kids can't handle it. Maybe, but they play fast. They turn it over. They play slow. You see them in the half court. They're making ridiculous passes. They're leaving their feet when they're going up, and then all of a sudden they're thinking about turning, and then they're just throwing it up in the air. They made as many turnovers. I didn't break this down. Maybe there's something that I'll break down. I don't want to do that, but I don't want to do it. But they've played so much that I think charting who turns it over and making it, okay, this is a really bad turnover. This is what happened all the way through. So, you're going to turn it over sometimes, but they're not all on the fast breaks. That's my point here. So I hear what you're saying. BK says he really hopes this isn't something Dusty does often. Let the clock run down to let the players finish it. That's inexcusable, and it will matter in the bigger games. Yeah, I've gone over that part. And again, I think you have the point. What was the game that I was watching? I don't remember, but they did the same thing, and there was actually less time. So, you get, what was it? 4.7 or 3.7? Let's see if I wrote that down in here. I did 3.7. I mean, 8 seconds, right? He probably should have called it a little bit earlier, but they had something. They just weren't. Is this a team that needs their hand held? He needs to figure that out. But your point is well taken. Turnovers, and some missed free throws late. Yeah. The thing about those missed free throws is that they're able to rebound them and get the stickbacks and get a new possession, but you can't count on that. ROJ says his patience with the turnovers is growing thin. Still liking our potential a lot. Yeah, well, if your patience did not just completely explode in that game, then you are the J in ROJ must stand for Job, who apparently, I don't know my Old Testament that well, but he was supposed to have great patience. Muffin Man 67 says Donaldson's turnover was awful, totally out of control with a minute left. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And he's the point guard. He's the one that you're relying on, getting you in the sets, making the plays, and he's driving the lane. And even if he didn't step on the baseline, he threw it away after that. It was like he was bound and determined to create a turnover. BK's going back to the timeout. 3 seconds is not enough. Like I said, just because I don't kill the coach on it, I think you make a fine point there. I don't really want to argue it. I'll concede it to you. M&B pointing out that they came out flat at the half. No doubt. 7-0 run, and then it was completely got tipped. And Michigan was leading by 4 at the half, and then they were getting blown out just like that. Turnovers and rebounding with 2 7-footers, getting constantly out rebounding. That's the thing too. CK, They always get rattled because there's no point guard that's worth a damn. Well, it's harsh, but I think it's accurate. You got to have a point guard to calm things down and get you into the play and be able to run things. And as much as you like Danny Wolf, who at times he is a point guard at 7 feet, he's bringing it up. He turns it over as much as anyone else, and he plays with a flair. But part of that flair is that he might take his wingspan and throw some kind of no look hook pass, and he made some sweet passes in this game, but also, and it's not just him, but if he's going to play the role as a positionless 7-footer that you're going to run the offense through, well, people are going to take his lead about how they're going to pass. And it's almost like it's a high degree of difficulty and all of this, but yeah, they got to do better. Trey Donaldson has to do better as a point guard, and so does Roddy Gale. BK's talking about, if you look closely, he says Gale actually slipped trying to cut. He was slipping all night. He needs to be looked into with his handling skills. Gale's Jekyll and Hyde. Gale makes some great plays. He's streaky too, Jekyll and Hyde. The beginning of this game, he came out. He was there. What do you have? 2-3 turnovers, and people, you watch it and say, why don't they put him on the bench? But then Donaldson does the same thing. I went over the Golden Wolf. They didn't have enough time with 3.7 after they called the timeout. Maybe that's what they wanted to get into, and then maybe that's what Arkansas was thinking that they were going to do, and that's why they ended up having to call the timeout, because what Arkansas was doing there. Yeah, too many turnovers there, people going through it, all of it. Here's CK calling the team soft. Dusty's going to say WTF. Yeah, I think a lot of people were talking WTF. People talking about the 19 turnovers. Yeah, think about the refs. Every game I watch, there's ref issues. I'm not saying that the refs are the continuation, the and one. And that was a little. Did he think Jalen Brunson was out there in the Knicks, and these officials trying to show that they're NBA refs? Giving them an and one. I'm like, what? Jordan wouldn't have got that and one at the time that they got. But I tell you, if you're watching other games, they go over to that monitor and sit over there and look at it for hours at a time. It's terrible. No, I didn't like the continuation. And one. No, that was ridiculous. Here is EM, who says Michigan lacks scoring most of the game. Hot hand off the bench and 2 athletic 7-footers won't take the blue far. Yeah, well, we got a little bit ahead of ourselves with Michigan getting out to the 8-1 record in the first 9, and then you get ranked in the top 25, and you land at number 14. You start thinking, wow. I mean, I saw it. I saw people saying, they beat Arkansas and they come back and beat Oklahoma. They'll be in the top 10. Be a top 10 team. Thinking about heading into the new year, you start, if you're a top 10 team, then you start thinking about, hey, can this team win the Big Ten? You start thinking about, can this team, Sweet 16? Hey, you start saying, I'll say it, Final Four. I don't know. I didn't actually hear anybody talking about this team being a Final Four team. But if you're in the top 16, obviously you're thinking, hey, Sweet 16. And the way they were playing. And then the start that they got off to, I would imagine There's some Twitter fingers out there talking when Michigan was up by 15, like, woo, oh, Dusty's cooking. This team, screw you, Cal. This team, we don't need 5-star, whatever they would say. This might be my favorite feedback of the entire night. And it comes from Michigan Go Blue, who says that was the most stressful college basketball regular season game I've ever watched. I agree with that. That was one. I watched that one by myself. That was one I wish I was watching with a bunch of people. Because there was a lot of, whoa, oh, no, yeah, whoa, back and forth. Everything there. Here's a question. Do you think May needs to get the bigs to stay hybrid or play strong and stay on those boards? I don't mind Wolf being a hybrid, but there needs to be an identity set in stone soon. Now, well, I mean, Wolf's a 25-foot play anywhere out on the floor. Golden is a true 7-1 post guy. Yeah, he's athletic enough to come up the lane. So then you start looking to say, all right, those are who else on that front line? Everybody needs to rebound. Everybody needs to do a better job rebounding. So no, I don't think you put Wolf down on the front line. You need to get the other guys in there, and everybody's got to crash, and they got to get stronger. And the main thing is that the guards need to do a better job in being able to run the offense, and everybody needs to do a better job in taking care of the ball. It's in their heads now. They look like they went 2 games and they were doing it. It's obviously when they went through the first 6 games, they were turning it over so many times in the first half. It became a joke. Everybody knew, turnover. Look at this team. And then a funny thing would happen is that they would come out in the second half and they really didn't turn it over. They did a good job. And so whatever Dusty was saying at the half, let him come out, let him play, give him some leash, and then rein him in at the half. But then they went 2 games where they did a good job. And then tonight, 5 turnovers after 20 minutes at the Madison Square Garden. You're thinking that's fine. But then they had 14 in the second half. That's a total meltdown. Can't really trust them that way. Turnovers. Yeah, here we are. May needs to enact some discipline. Yeah, I'm just reading everybody saying the same thing, but you're all right. Just too many turnovers. It was a nice attempt to come back, but they have to figure out a way to get those turnovers down. Correct. Gale is streaky. Yes, Gale is Jekyll and Hyde. There are only a few games throughout the regular season that hurt this bad. MSU, Purdue, and maybe Ohio State. Losing a game like this to Calipari is incredibly painful. Yeah, well, Cal, I get that. I forgot that John L. Davis, who I wanted from FAU, I mean, he didn't look like he was the star of the Hogs, but of course, Wagner and Flan, those guys are the real deal. Yeah, Arkansas hadn't beat anybody. Their best win was against Miami, so now they got 2 wins against some U of M's. All right, I'm going to just take a couple more here. SW Lion wants to be objective about it. Their 2 Big Ten wins could have been losses. You keep having games like this when you're up or down a point or 2, you're not going to win them all. I'll say that's true. Calvin is saying that Billis made a great point about them over officiating these calls in the last 2 minutes. The one ref who was bald and AA was making lousy calls late. Yeah, Show me a basketball game that you watch that you don't think the refs suck. I mean, every game that I watch, when you win, people don't say it. When you lose, they almost all say it. But they all over officiate when it comes to going to the replay and everything else. Now, Michigan did not get destroyed in this game. Michigan was playing great, and then they played terrible, and then they fought back, and then they had a shot, and they didn't make it. So they got destroyed in the middle part of this game. If that's all you watched, Mr. Warlight, then I would agree with you. But that's not the tail of the tape in this game. That's it. We'll go through a few here. Here's a Razorback fan. You can make a deep run in March. Yeah, well, let's see how much they improve before we start talking about deep runs in March. I don't, I was thinking about that during the game, but I think we can all agree that if they don't get better on the free throw line and they don't do better and get the turnovers closer to single digits rather than 20, then this is also a team that could miss the tournament. So I'm not going to go crazy on any of that. Let's look at some of the numbers. Vlad had 17 and 9. 3 of 5 from the free throw line. 1 turnover. Danny Wolf, 3 turnovers and 14. He almost had a triple-double. 14, 9, and 9. Career high assists. He was flying through, taking it from 25 feet, driving the right lane, and going over to the finger roll as a 7-footer. It was impressive. Gale with 13 and 3, 3 turnovers. Amari Burnett, 3 turnovers, 10 points, 3 boards. Trey Donaldson, 4 turnovers. The last one, the most costly, 9 points, 2 boards, and 3 assists. Cheddar, 13. Cheddar was awesome in the first half. I mean, Cheddar's an all-or-nothing guy. Some of these games, he's the microwave, and everybody's right in there. Everybody loves Cheddar and everything else. And then he goes long stretches and you don't see him. I wouldn't be surprised. Did he have all 13 in the first half? I guess I can check that since I do keep an eye on the first half box score. Cheddar had all 13 points in the first half. Walters finally hit some shots, came in, knocked down 2 threes. He had been struggling from downtown, and then Pippen came in and hit a 3. Reuben Jones, they're not getting much out of him. And in the second half, this is it when you come down to it. It's got to be Donaldson and Gale and Wolf when it comes to the turnovers. These guys have to. If we're looking for something, I don't think it's about slowing the team down, trying to do something else in a half court. It is about Trey Donaldson and Roddy Gale and Danny Wolf. Those are the guys that handle the ball the most. Those are the guys that are setting your offense. Those are the guys that are dribbling it the most. They're handling the ball the most. They're the ones that have to rein it in and figure that out. They've got it in them. Trey Donaldson came off the bench for Auburn. He's being put in a situation here where, and I think I'll say it, I said it earlier. If Michigan is going to be a tournament team and be their best version of themselves, he needs to be a floor general. They don't have that right now. As well as they played and everything else. I don't know if we say he needs to grow up, more experience. It's a lot to handle. Sure. Is he up to it? He's got to do a better job being a floor general, and so does Roddy Gale. Roddy Gale at times looks like he shouldn't even be playing in the Big Ten. At times it looks like you should be taking him out. Bench him. And then he has like a sequence of 3 or 4 plays. You're like, this guy's awesome. He's their best player. And then Wolf, who knows what to say about him? Everybody's like tantalized right now. Oh, he's a 7-footer. He's a point guard. Oh, he's dribbling between his legs. Oh, he's running a pick and roll with another 7-footer. He's good from 25. He's good from anywhere. He's going in with a flying finger roll. And then, he's throwing it away left and right. So what can you say about that? You got a wild you got a wild stallion. Somebody's got to, and Dusty May's got to jump on him and break him. That's what needs to happen over there. But in the end, if I had to say something about this game, great start, middle part, terrible, but to be able to come back, because you're saying when they're down by 18, it's like, man, this was they got exposed. They melted down. They got rattled. Dusty May's got a long way, but so it was good that they were able to fight back and play reasonably well, even better than reasonably well, to get it down to a one-possession game where they had an opportunity to win it. I don't know if it's huge or not, but it was big. How big? Oh, we'll see. They got to learn. You can't go those long stretches, and then these guys have to look in the mirror and figure it out when it comes down. And, they might not be good enough. Trey Donaldson might not be good enough to play the kind of minutes, 32 minutes, and be able to direct an offense for a top 25 team. He just might not be ready for that. And the same thing for Roddy Gale. He transferred out of Ohio State because he wanted to be the man. And he is being afforded the opportunity to be the man. Starter. Most experienced guy. He's the one they're going to look to. And then at times he looks like he's ready. And then at other times, it's consistency from him. And then I just went over Wolf. What can you say about him? And right now, the Wolf of State Street, everybody's just, smitten with him. I am too. I'm not making it sound like I'm not. I enjoy watching him play. I don't see guys like, at times, he looks like Larry Bird out there. At times, he's passing and moving on the perimeter like he's Draymond Green. Shooting like Larry Bird. Passing, as a 7-footer like he's Arvydas Sabonis. Holding up, no look, underhand swing passes in the lane. It's pretty amazing. But, it's not the Harlem Globetrotters. I mean, you can't, you throw those many passes and then you're trying to do so much that you're throwing, you can't. If you want to be a good basketball team, a tournament team. Overall, again, I would say encouraged because they came back after looking like a complete meltdown and they were knocked out and embarrassed themselves. They didn't embarrass themselves. Yeah, too many turnovers. You can say that is embarrassing, and we know that's what they have to work on. And now I'm just repeating myself over and over and over again. But that's the kind of game it was. Normally, I just go about 10, 15 minutes on these post games. And, now it's midnight. Let's get to what we have coming up next. And what we have coming up next is the upcoming schedule for Michigan. And that is brought to you by Good Afternoon Michigan Football and Basketball, which you can hear on this very feed that you're watching or listening to right now, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And it is already Wednesday. Here we are at 11, so coming up at 2, we'll be on tomorrow. And we will talk about Michigan's new offensive coordinator, Chip Lindsey. I also want to take this time, if you're wondering, like, hey, what do you think of Chip Lindsey, Michigan's new offensive coordinator? Trevor McHugh on the Maize and Blue Review, the senior editor, has a fabulous story and write-up on Lindsey and what he brings to the table. I encourage you, if you are not, if you're somebody that's interested in the portal and Michigan football news and recruiting and basketball and recruiting and everything that's going on, well, the Maize and Blue Review's for you. And if it's not for you, it's for a Michigan fan that likes all of those things. Hey, this just in, this will make a great present. Go to michigan.rivals.com. Make a great present for you. Let's be honest. You're the one that likes Michigan more than anyone else. You're up at 12:16 at night watching some, watching some guys scream at the screen about a regular season basketball loss. Well, here is that upcoming schedule. Michigan, as was pointed out now, is going to let this one have to sit. They don't get to come back and play again until Wednesday next week. And that's when they will be in the Jumpman Invitational taking on Oklahoma. You wish it was sooner rather than later, but they'll have to take on the Sooners in now 7 days because we're into midnight. But Oklahoma, they've been pretty good. And we'll see if Michigan has learned anything. That seems pretty cliche. They'll be working on their ball handling and turnovers. That's pretty obvious for this team. That's going to do it. Michigan falls to 8-2 on the year. They lose a wild game in New York to the Hogs. The Hogs win it 89-87 over the Wolverines. Thanks so much for your feedback, your listening, wherever you're listening at. And remember, we're here after every Michigan basketball game. Everybody, have yourself a great rest of the morning. See ya. Whew.